So when you say like every band ever, like do you mean like Daft Punk?
Yeah, sure.
Like BB King?
Yeah.
Enya?
Yes.
What about Rage Against the Machine?
Oh, yeah.
Did you do the Moana soundtrack?
Soundtracks.
Okay, okay. So it is hyperbole.
What is
Well, I
every
don't know.
band ever?
Is the Moana soundtrack a band? I guess we're getting into semantics here.
To me, I consider soundtracks are more of I can leave or take those things because they're not an actual band performing original music.
Okay, but some soundtracks have songs that you produced.
Yes.
Okay, but the Moana soundtrack specifically, you did not produce.
I didn't want to pick that up. Usually if it was a band or an artist and they're doing original work, of course, but Moana, I think
What
that was
about
many people, right? That
probably
wasn't
several people did that,
it wasn't
including The
just
Rock.
Moana.
I think The Rock had a lot to do with that. What about Phil Spector's Christmas album? Did you produce that?
Oh, Christmas albums I just like, so I will do all of those. That's
Okay,
just
but I feel like that was famously produced by Phil Spector.
right, but a lot of times I don't need the credit for these things. So a producer will be a producer, but I kind of come in as an over producer, and I
Okay,
will also work behind the scenes. So it's sort of like having a ghostwriter sometimes. So I'll be there, but I don't necessarily need to be in the credits. I don't need to be, mentioned or noticed. It's sort of, people know that I've been doing it, but nobody that I know, but people in music circles.
so you were just kind of over Phil Spector's shoulder for that. I do love that album, by the
Thank
way.
you.
Yeah, that Winter Wonderland and Darlene Love, Christmas, like they play it
Very.
every year. It's a
I
great
know.
sound.
That's a really fun time for me because I get to hear all my Christmas albums. That's like a special. It's like a present every year.
I just got a few more, and then we can
Yeah.
get on
No
to
worries.
the main
No, let's
artist for
talk
today.
about it. Yeah.
But you did Nickelback
Yeah.
and Creed
Yeah.
and Train
Yeah.
and Sublime.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually like Sublime. I think they kind of get a little
They're just different. They're just so
unfairly
different.
dissed.
Yeah. But
Okay,
yeah.
well, okay, so you really have covered a wide swath of the
Yeah.
musical landscape.
Everybody's different.
Well, I guess like with that all to choose from, to pin it down to like one person. I guess I'm most curious about Tom Waits.
Let's talk about Tom Waits.
You're listening to part one of a two-part conversation between Craig Cacowski, a fan of Tom Waits, and Tamara Federici, producer of Every Band Ever, already in progress.
He's done so much, so I can't say that I know his entire oeuvre, but definitely like there's a chunk in like the mid '80s with like Swordfish Trombones to Rain Dogs, Frank's Wild Years. Like I feel like that stuff I know pretty well, and I'm fascinated by those albums. Did you have anything to do with those?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm really excited about those, and people don't ask about that. Well, people don't ask about anything. I haven't told anybody, but
Yeah,
I, you know, I feel like that's gotten forgotten about. So I'm really glad that you uh, are influenced by that album and that you find it exciting.
I guess my first question is like, what is it actually like being in a room with Tom Waits? Because I don't know, I know him as an actor, and I know kind of his persona as a singer, this kind of like, slouchy hipster, alcoholic, beatnik, you know, just rolling out of bed at 2 p.m. and getting a coffee and a cigarette, and then voice made of sandpaper. Like, to what degree is that a put on? Is it a persona, or is that just who he is?
I would say it's 75% of who he is sort of like a weird undertaker who throws glitter at you. But he goes to the Emmys every year, right? That's the other 25% is like this weird thing of like,
A lot of
what?
contradictions there.
What?
Yeah.
Why doesn't even it doesn't that doesn't make sense. And yet, you know, uh, he's like the most basementy guy, you know?
Yeah.
And there are some things especially the Jarmusch years are feel really right for him. And I don't know that now it's not really a Tom Waits time. Like this feels like, how does he even exist? How does Tom Waits exist in
But
2022?
he still does,
He
yes.
does. He's 72.
I missed him on the Emmys this year because that was a tradition, right? That every year he would be on the Emmys,
No, no, he
presenting
just
at
sits in
least
the
one.
audience. He just sits in the audience. He just goes for the audience. That's what's so strange. He just appears. He just appears and then he leaves. He's
And not
not,
even the Grammys, like it's the Emmys. He
no,
loves sitcoms,
yes.
that
I
guy.
can't stand the Grammys. I mean, he's not wrong, but it's just odd.
And so that voice of like that Tom Waits kind of gravelly voice, that's for real?
Yeah, that's for real. That's for real.
As his producer, did you ever suggest, like, did you ever give him a lozenge or?
No, I just, I feel like if you tried to clean him up, he might just explode and die, you know? That's not what you want to do with Tom Waits. You just want to make him more and more gnarly and random drips and just, jazzy. If you take the dirt off of him, he might be translucent, you know?
So it feels like as a producer, then part of your job is kind of like setting the tone for him in the studio to do what he does and be who he is. How did you do that?
Well, for this particular album, for Rain Dogs, we had a lot of like two by fours, and there was a lot of like whacking on the walls, whacking on trees. A lot of tires were stacked up. We threw a lot of tires. You can barely hear that sound on the album, honestly, but it sort of all goes with the ambience, right? Um,
It must reach people subconsciously, right? To know that a tire is being whacked somewhere in the background.
they know. They don't know, but they know. You know, like they know. You can hear that. Like we have good enough sound equipment that they can do that. One time we were throwing, like we were blowing out birthday candles, and you can hear that at the very end once the horns go out and the squeaky shoes go out, you can just hear a little bit of like, and then it stops.
Wow, I'll have to get better quality headphones, I think, because I would love to hear that. I wish I was more of an audiophile, actually, so I can pick up on some of those subliminal, Easter eggs that you put on the record.
Yeah, there's so many. That one's so fun.
Now, I mean, this is a big album. There's 19 tracks on the album. Some of them are just kind of like jangly instrumentals. There's also a lot of musicians, right? I mean, there's like a couple dozen musicians worked on. There's all kinds of instrumentation, and what I like is it sounds like very homemade, and especially like running counter to like the typical like 80s big sound. Like this is the time of like, I don't know, Steve Winwood and Don Henley and like drum machine, which you all must have also done those albums.
Yeah, yeah, but a lot more people were doing what you're talking about and not Tom Waits, for sure. There's um, right, I was trying to think. Oh yeah, Blind Melon. I think it was around this time. Was so
Blind
I have
Melon
a
of No Rain fame.
right. I
I
believe
think
he
No
was right
Rain
around
was
this
more
time.
like
Did you later?
1993. I
Oh,
don't
you're
want to,
right.
you're
You're
the
right. You're right.
producer. I don't want to pin you down, but
No, I don't remember years that well. There's so many that I don't. A lot of times I'll forget names or I'll forget years or there's just a lot to manage.
it must all blur together. Uh, but one of my favorite tracks is Jockey Full of Bourbon. I guess my only question on Jockey Full of Bourbon is, it's a great song, like great groove all the way through. Mark Rebo, I think, is the guitarist who has such like a unique sound, and that it's one of my favorite guitar solos ever. But there was a decision that you must have made. Like there's a baritone sax that comes in for only the last 5 seconds of the song, and it just kind of seals the deal. Like it feels so good. Like there's no sax throughout the song. At the very end, like this bass heavy sax comes in. What was the decision behind including that sax in the last 5 seconds of Jockey Full of Bourbon?
We actually wanted him to go on longer and he was kidnapped and that was unfortunate. It was crazy. It was really like
The sax player was kidnapped?
he just gotten there. He just got one note, and then it just came out of nowhere. It was we've never seen him. We didn't see that guy. He was dressed up like a wall, and then he came off the wall, and then he immediately sacked the guy and his instrument, and
So
that's
the kidnapper was there disguised as a wall throughout the entire process. And then the sax player showed up late. The sax player, who was the target all along of this kidnapping, showed up late for the recording session, got a few notes in, and was immediately secreted out of the room.
yeah. I think he had marital issues. I don't know. It was seemed like a private matter. So we kept recording because it wasn't I did my due diligence. I said, did anybody here do that? Be honest. And it was not Tom, it was not anybody, it was not anybody else there, it wasn't me. So you know he wasn't killed on the spot, so I just was like, look, my job is to get this done. So
Okay.
yeah,
You never got
so
an update on his status?
I just had to move on to other bands. I
Sure.
can't, there's somebody else that has to be the long game person in this.
Well, I guess that is the magic sometimes of the studio is like, you got it. You got it. You got that 5 seconds. And maybe what I'm hearing is the urgency of playing those notes before he was abducted.
Oh my gosh, do you think he knew? Do you think he just had a feeling?
He must have.
Whoa.
As you said, it was he was having marital issues, so
That's the
he
only
must have
thing.
been like looking over his shoulder at all times.
I mean, it did make us wary about walls, and we did some stuff outdoors for a little bit. But yeah, that was the craziest thing.
I'm surprised you didn't lead with that when I asked you about the album.
There's
I
so
would
many
think.
things. There's so many
Oh, so
things.
there's crazier stories? Okay.
Well, I would. The one I almost told. It's not the craziest story, but it is sort of like when you were asking me what Tom Waits is like. Like he has this thing called cashiering, and he likes to like hop into, in a grocery store, and if there's an open lane, he'll actually get in the cashier, uh, you know, in the cashier booth and just start ringing up groceries. And he just does that for fun. It's sort of like David Sedaris with picking up trash in England or something. But yeah, I guess I call it cashier. Well, I don't remember who started that, but yeah, he's done it for years. You'll never know it's him.
I feel like I would know it's him. Like he just has that distinctive look and distinctive voice.
He doesn't say a lot. Like it can almost be a silent transaction, you
He
know?
just scans the groceries.
And maybe a low moan.
And does he bag them as well?
Yes. He's very good at bagging.
So it must have taken a while to do this album if he's like going off on these cashiering escapades.
I mean, it's actually fine. His whole group knows that this is how he works. Like, he works very organically. And, if you want to work in a studio with him sometimes, you're going to build that studio with, lots of different things. Sometimes it's just different shapes of rocks. Sometimes it's, brass instruments. Sometimes it's, he'd prefer it if you all dress up as, in zoot suits, whatever kind of gets the mood going, and whatever's kind of feeling authentic to him at the moment. So, one day he called up and he was like, it's for uh, Cemetery Polka.
Love that song.
He asked us to show up like accountants and then change into pioneer outfits. And I don't really know what a pioneer dress is like. So that was difficult, but I just said yes and got it together, and that seemed to get him in the mood. And then he was able to make that song, and I feel like that's such a fantastically weird song.
Yeah, I guess I'm picturing like Little House on the Prairie kind of dresses.
The closest I could get was just I was thinking more explorer, so I might have had the vibe a little bit wrong, but overall it seemed to do the trick. But somebody else may have done, would have taken it a different direction.
So you all had to do a costume change halfway through the recording of the song.
Yeah, you have to come prepared. I mean, sometimes it's scales and sometimes it's a costume change. You just don't know. That's what makes them so good.
What would a typical diet be for Tom while recording the album?
A single bean followed 2 hours by another single bean.
Okay.
Just
Kidney, lima,
um,
black,
hmm.
chickpea, or did it matter?
Gosh, I don't remember. I want to say it was a kidney. Uh, I'm not positive on that though.
It is the Cadillac of beans.
Do you know who who really loves beans? Or Slipknot. They love them.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they eat more than one at a time?
Oh yeah, just bowls. They're nuts. They're crazy.
So I imagine a Slipknot studio would smell differently
Yeah, it's
than a
like
Tom
armpits
Waits
and
studio.
beans. Totally. I feel like you can hear that in the music. It's a little armpit and beanie.
I don't listen to a lot of Slipknot, but
Okay.
I imagine if I did, I would feel like I could smell it as
Yeah.
well.
They're nice boys.
Now, Tom Waits' lyrics are so unique. Um, and did you have anything to do with the writing of the lyrics, or were you kind of hands off?
I will help if they want me to help. And sometimes I'll throw in something. Um, I did some hand claps, which I love to do on these.
On
Other,
Clap Hands?
yep.
There's a song called Clap Hands.
Yeah. That one's, I mean, I feel like he made that one for me, but I'll never know. Um, there was the one that was, what's he building in there? I used to
Yeah,
make
that's a different album, but yeah, that's one. There's always like a spoken word piece on every Tom Waits album.
Yeah, right. For that one,
What's
I
he
kept
building in there?
exactly, and I would answer him, and he was like, "Stop, don't.
He
That's
actually
not
didn't want the question answered.
right." It turns out that's not the kind of answer. That is, you just that's just a hypothetical. He doesn't actually want to know. So I was trying to deliver on that for him, and no, that wasn't the way to go.
Yeah. I do want to ask about some of the lyrics because at least as the producer, you're gonna have to like understand like what he's getting at with some of these in order to like
Hmm.
deliver the message of the song,
Okay.
right? So,
Mhm.
because I think he just has like such like surreal kind of beatnik kind of imagery in there. So the title track "Rain Dogs" has a lyric: "Inside a broken clock, splashing the wine with all the rain dogs." What does that mean exactly?
Oh, that's alcoholism. Yeah. That,
Okay, so pretty straightforward.
yeah, that's a pretty. I feel like you just gave me right keywords on that.
It's just a
Yeah,
cry for help. Okay.
yeah. It's just like this is gonna be. I might be a little drunk. This is how this album's gonna go. Welcome. Right. That's sort of our incantation.
And Cemetery Polka, which I talked about before, I love that song because it's like it's all of like his aunts and uncles and their eccentricities and how he's waiting for all of them to die to get the inheritance basically, or maybe kill them for the inheritance. But there's one line: Uncle Vernon, independent as a hog on ice. What does independent as a hog on ice mean? I
I
guess
think
I'm
that's
picturing like a hog skating, but maybe
oh really. Yeah. Is this? Here's my question. Right. Is this one of your favorite songs, or is this sort of just like a one where you're like, I'm tolerating it.
no. I
You love this.
in the 90s I put Cemetery Polka on a lot of mixtapes for relationships that ultimately didn't work.
What's that mixtape? Can you make that mixtape, please?
I feel like I made it many times in the 90s.
um, this, yeah, this is about somebody being rich and living in the suburbs.
Really?
Yep, he's independent,
As a
and
hog on ice.
yep, these assholes in the suburbs.
How about let me fall out of the window with confetti in my hair?
I mean, that's pretty. Did we record that? Because that just mostly happened several times.
Why was confetti in his hair?
Oh my god, why is confetti not in his hair? I mean, like, why? Of course confetti's in his hair. Confetti's in his pockets. If he reaches to pay for something with a credit card, confetti falls out. I mean, this guy is basically one big balloon.
He's always in a celebratory mood.
He's always spring loaded. He's always spring loaded with dust or glitter, and a hat. So he's a lot of fun. I mean, like, this is if you want four people at the end of the night, at the end of his session, if you want to have a weird good time, it's somebody who carries dust and glitter in their left and right pockets, and who's gonna have like some chattering teeth that cross the table while telling you about some New Orleans dead body floating around. You know,
I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to have a pocket of dust and a pocket of glitter on either side, because you never know when you need either one.
I feel like you're thinking like Tom Waits. That's exactly. You never know.
Go to Every Band Ever on Instagram for updates or to suggest a band. Craig Cacowski is an actor and improviser based in Los Angeles. People usually recognize him from Drunk History, Community, Veep, or dozens of projects he was not in. And Tamara Federici has only the hat part of her Halloween pumpkin outfit done. The editor is Will Velasquez. The audio engineer is Clark Jackson. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Who are you? Who?